from the typical Zoom rectangle experience, and that kind of has a sense of relief for them when they get that Zoom fatigue. Our chat is powered by GetStream IO. As I said before, it's COPA compliant, so we don't ask any minors. We actually have a toggle when we create an experience that says whether it's for minors or for adults. We let people pick artwork avatars. Polling is a big feature of ours. Custom chat emojis, reaction emojis, and as I mentioned. So let's just hop right into it. So this is actually, those are my dev tools. Here we go. So this is what someone going to attend the experience sees at first. They, in the child or in the minor mode, you just are asked for your name and your school. Because sometimes we actually have these virtual field trips. We kind of have that minimum size that we want to make it worthwhile for the cost to go into production of one. So sometimes we'll have multiple schools together. Sometimes we'll have one school with 150 students all attending. You get to pick an avatar for your chat, and it's based on one of the objects in our collection. So I will be a storage jar, and say submit. What's really interesting, if you want, you can actually join this chat yourself by going to live.barnesfoundation.org/mcn-demo. As you see, when you pick an avatar for your object, you actually can click on a link, which will take you to a new tab to our online collection to give you more information about that. So we can kind of extend the experience, and it's got deep zoom and all those nice things that we've come to expect from our experience. And as I mentioned before, you can type messages to the room, so there's a nice chat. We cool things down because sometimes the students get really excited, especially, and we want to make sure they don't spam chat. We do have moderation available for that. We do actually have some specific emojis, custom emojis for the barns. So we use the Dewey method of light, line, color, and space to define artwork. So our presenters are really excellent at doing things like asking the students to use emojis to express themselves, things like that. And also, we can identify things as curved or wavy or vertical or horizontal. So, or, diffuse, bumpy or smooth. So we actually get, this goes from our pre-K all the way to 12th grade kind of experience. And then when someone is talking, there we go. You can react if you like what someone had to say. You can have it put a smiley face on their chat and do things like that. On the back end, see if that's it. Yep. So this is a moderator view. I can switch between moderator and user view. Probably shouldn't have done that. It asked me to identify myself, but essentially here I can delete something. If somebody says something that we don't want to hear, I can mute somebody who says something bad, and I can freeze the chats in case I need to zoom in if it gets really busy with 140 students simultaneously doing things. And really quickly, I'm going to ask the person behind the curtain to switch to a poll. Let's see if we get that done. And then the other thing that you can take a look at is there's a nice little admin panel back here that lets us basically change properties on things. Like we can choose the date and time, the custom name for each of the things, title, subtitle, description, and create poll questions in advance or on the fly for this experience. So here we go. So I'm going to ask the poll by hitting ask as an administrator. It should show up in a few seconds up here. And if it doesn't, I'll send a screenshot later. There we go. So what do you think red symbolizes, love or anger? And so now you can vote by choosing 1 or 2 in your chat as a member audience participant. And as you see, it gets a nice little back and forth right there to really let the audience be interactive. I think that's, again, a great thing. I have twin 8-year-olds who are going to be 9 in January, and there's nothing worse than a Zoom meeting where they're told to keep their cameras on so the teacher can see them, but mute their mics and don't use the chat feature. We encourage everyone to do as much as they can and participate in these. So as you see, we keep a very interactive thing. It's very colorful. and fun, and it's a lot of those things. Going quickly back to the prompts, things that we wish we could change about the software. So we developed this. Again, it's nice because it's on top of 2 existing technologies, one of which is fairly new, the live streaming from Amazon, from AWS, called IVS. And you know, so we only built this in about a month. We built it from the beginning of September to the end of September to have it launch in October. And then essentially we are using an agile method. So we keep dreaming up new things that we would like. You know, we're improving different things. The emojis are relatively new. We're going to basically do something for the pre-K-12, pre-K crowds to remove all of these other emojis that might just get in the way, so we can simplify the messaging. But you know, I think it's just something where we're always going back and forth and seeing what we can do to improve the situation back and forth. As you know, browsers like Chrome don't want to play audio by default the first time you go to a website. So you know, we're always trying to capture that corner and edge case in a lot of things. And I'm going to hop over to chat in the Zoom meeting and see if anybody else has questions, or you can put those questions into this as well. And then I think at that point, sorry, we're holding questions till the end. Is that right, Claire? Okay,
Yep.
so so that's about it for our live stream demo. So we even had fun and we put in a bright mode and a dark mode. We much prefer the dark mode to focus on the images, but you know, we do a lot of things like that. We're trying to, you know, make the experience as simple as possible so that a 5-year-old can get into it or an 85-year-old can get into it. And we started the scope with our K-12 audience, but we've actually very rapidly expanded it into private member talks, as well as we're doing virtual tours through this platform. So we've had a couple of organizations have like kind of their closing party, you know, during a virtual conference in this, during having a lecture. And you know, now that we're closed, now that all Philadelphia museums are closed through the remainder of the year, we're going to consider seeing if anybody wants to take a corporate holiday party and bring it online into this kind of fashion, because even the older audiences got really into emoji use and giving the React emojis to other chats. So it's been a really fun experience.
Thank you so much, Steve. Next up, we have Jessica to tell us about Widen DAMS. Would you keep it on share so that Jessica can share?
Yep, I am. Oh, there we go. There we
go. All right. Here we go. Okay, let me know when you can see this. I see it. Okay, cool. So hi everyone, as I mentioned before, this is our second DAM. We actually, I was a little bit hesitant to do this today because I'm actually maintaining 2 DAMs at the same time. We are still using Piction to get our images and the metadata about the images into TMS and also our website, and we have an internal interpretive planning app. So we've also spun up our second DAMS, which is to replace Piction. This is Widen. We're waiting for, we hired external developers to create an API for us to talk to the Widen API. And then also TMS. We use TMS for our collections information management system. So what you're seeing today is very much still in the prototyping phase, but I decided to go ahead and share it anyway. So this is a real talk snapshot about, you know, what it's like to be a DAM manager. So I'm logged in as an admin. This is what's called the dashboard in Widen. We call it our digital asset bank. That was our metadata and digital assets standards committee came up with a bunch of different names, and we had staff vote, and we like the bank, so welcome to the bank. So on the dashboard, I can have a lot of different buttons This is just to show images that are publication quality. And again, it's still, since we don't have the TMS data in Widen yet, that still is coming. So we don't have a lot of the object data, which would populate this, the filtering on the sides. But as you can see, we'd be able to search within it in order to narrow down. All of the images of the collection are available in Widen the same way they were in Piction. One reason we wanted to go to Widen is because we're expanding to be enterprise-wide. So we also are including documentary photography, and that includes everything, born digital assets since 2000. So we only have a few archival, digitized from the archives in Widen at the moment. And then something else that we're working on is we're getting our conservation images into Widen. Another feature that we've found very successful are called portals. So this happens to be a public portal. I could, you don't need a login for it. It's actually not password protected, but it could be. But these are images of our Rivera Court, the Detroit industry murals. So this is something that I could share. Actually, I could put it in the chat after I'm done, and then you'd be able to download, this object, this artwork's in the public domain, and we release the images. It's available on our online collections, but also this is a good way to share with outside users. And then I've also started a portal for logos and branding. So again, this is very early days for this too. I only have the JPEGs in here right now, but again, this would be something for, these are available internally, not managed by me. I'm also populating a portal with frequently asked questions. So as I create videos and training guidelines, cheat sheets, that sort of things, this is just an example of all of our lovely numbering conventions. I'm sure you all have your own versions. And then this just goes to a SharePoint form if someone has an image request. One of the things that is pretty great, we have the ability to, let me just go into events. So I can search you can see what I already did this morning for 2020, and then search within. So I do COVID. And then let me just pick one that I know has good data to show you. But what I really like about the software in particular is we have a pretty specific file naming convention. And when images are uploaded, it automatically parses out different parts of the file name. So piece in this case stands for photography. Events, it's in the events category. We broke down this is the date this image was taken, but we broke it down by year, so you can search by year. And then actually this is an interesting case for cleanup later. It breaks down the label. It's not camel case, it's the other one, title case, by title case. So you see the photographer used COVID in all caps, so it broke it down. This is mapped from the actual image, the digital asset itself. You know, the photographer put in this description. They actually didn't put keywords. It looks like they put their keywords here. So that's something that we're also working on, is the workflow after images get added to the bank, who's responsible and how that other data gets into the system. Right now we have just a few conversions available. Not many people get to see the originals, especially for the collection. They're just so big. And people can share from here. At any point I can go, let's see, I'll do an advanced search. That's something. So here you can see how we have one group for all of our best of what's available. So if I were in marketing, when I log in, I would only see this image. But then we flagged the images for, because some of the, you know, curators, conservation, collections management, they need to be able to see everything. So these are flagged as older assets. And, but I will say both of these assets are pushed to TMS. If you log into TMS, you'd be able to see them. And then here, again, this is like state of, as of 1 o'clock on the 17th, you can see how we just have very few, we don't have a lot of data in here yet. You know, none of it's coming from TMS. These are all TMS values. Part of my job is to manage rights and reproduction. So we have a lot of security around rights management and who has access to what. And I think that's it for right now. Is that cool?
It's cool.
Okay.
That's great, Jessica. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thanks, Jessica, for showing us DAMS. Now we're going to have Rachel to see more other DAMS. Rachel, can you share? You're also muted.
I'm having a bit of a moment trying to share, so just, I might have to leave and come back if you want to do the other person come back to me.
Sure, that's cool. We can skip to Roger. Roger, you had a few different things that you could show as well. We can do another informal poll. So I'll remind everybody of what you have to share.
Sure, and it's actually all one integrated system. So I think it'll become a lot clearer if I just go through the presentation, and I can go into more detail about the separate subcomponents afterward, if that's all right.
Sure, if you think that's best, we can do that.
Yeah, it's a pretty modular thing. So hi, everyone. Once again, I'm Roger from the Field Museum, and I'm showing a digital mapping solution that we built using free and open source software. If I can figure out how to share my screen, let's see here. Can everyone see that?
It is showing.
Great. So when COVID happened, our executive team made a decision to discontinue paper maps for all of our visitors. That's not a decision that we all agreed with, but we had to go along with it. And at the time, we had only a PDF map on our website. And we weren't thrilled about this in terms of usability and accessibility. If people were going to the museum, having to zoom around this huge PDF on their tiny phones, it wouldn't have made for a very good experience. So we were tasked with developing a digital solution. And we did some research and investigated and basically came up with a solution that was zero cost upfront that took a lot of labor to develop. And I'm going to show you how it works first from the front end, what a user or visitor would see, and then from the back end, what us, the content editors, admins would be doing. So starting from on the left side here, you see this is a work in progress. As you zoom into the map, you can start to see major exhibitions. And if you go in further, then you start seeing pictograms for different highlights and one-way flows for COVID. If you click on an exhibition, you'll see a pop-up where you can acknowledge your sponsors or go to the exhibition page. Or let's say you have a movie theater there, you could hypothetically show some showtimes in there. All of this is modularly built with a couple of different technologies that I'll go into in a moment. But this is the basic functionality. It works on desktop and phones. It will just dynamically resize to a phone screen if you're on a smaller device, but you can still pinch the zoom and all that jazz, kind of like Google Maps. What's cool about this is that this is hooked up to whatever CMS on the back end that you want to use. Right now we're using Contentful's free plan, but let's say, sorry, Zoom captions turned away. Let's say due to social distancing, we have to close down one of our smaller exhibitions, like the Jades one here. We can edit that, mark it as closed in our CMS, or change the names, change the colors, the images, the description, click publish. And once you refresh this map, it is now closed, just like that. That means that, as things quickly change, anybody in the museum given access to your CMS can make live edits to the visitor facing map, and it all happens in real time. We chose Contentful just as a prototype because we were considering it for other projects as well, but really the backend CMS can be anything you want. We can also tie it into Airtable, which I know some of us are a huge fan of, or in a pinch, even Google Sheets. It doesn't really matter. This is very flexible. You can connect it to different systems. And so that's the front end and what the visitors see, what the editors use, and now I'm going to show you how it was built. See if there's anything to chat. Okay, so we took this PDF map and we used one open source software called QGIS, which is an open source mapping solution. We took the PDF, we kind of geo-referenced it and put it into the real world. So we gave it location information. And then on top of that, we just traced a bunch of shapes, lines, areas, points for different highlights. That's what the icons are. And once we did all this, we were able to import it into another software called Open Layers. That's something that the developers would have to utilize. There's a couple of options out there at least. There's Open Layers, Leaflet, but these are two standalone free and open source pieces of software that you can use together to create something like this on the left. And then we just tied Open Layers into our CMS. Let's see here. This process took quite a bit of time. So this is a kind of a double-edged sword. The cool thing is that this cost nothing in terms of upfront capital expenditures. It was only labor. The downside is that it took a lot of labor. And if we were to do it all over again, I would want to really examine, like, was this effort all worth it? In the end, it took about at least a month of dev time and several months of organization time, our team working with other stakeholders. Whereas, for example, we asked a vendor, a third-party vendor, to do a demo for us, and they were able to turn something really similar around in just about a week. So would it have made more sense to just outsource something like this instead of reinventing the wheel, or even going with something like what's already on Google Maps and just kind of tidying that up a bit? So the cost benefit is unclear to me, and especially like maybe we should have just stuck with paper maps. I'm not sure about that, but we built this, and once we are done, we do intend on open sourcing what we've built here. so other people can use it if they like. I'm going to see if I can see the chat real quick.
Roger, there's a question from Claire. She wants to know if you keep a log of edits so that they can be undone if an edit was made in error, and then wants to know if visitors need to refresh to see edited versions of map history or any changes that may have taken place after they open the map.
So the first question about version history is that depends on your backend CMS. In Contentful, you can see different versions here. You can restore to any one of them if you need to. In Airtable, you also have a version history here. You can see different snapshots, revision histories. In Google Sheets, you have something similar. So that just depends on your CMS, but most of them do have some version of that. Visitors will not see the latest changes until they refresh, but we expect to be changing the map, maybe once a month or less. It's not something that you're doing every minute of the day. So, and we just don't really see that as a use case. But if that were an issue, you could make a live tie-in just by changing the code. Everything is open source. So if you wanted to poll the CMS on a regular interval or have it push to your map, you could do that. It's just kind of unnecessary work as far as we can tell. Just reading through the chat here, see if there are any other questions.
So have more in-depth questions during the breakouts as well.
Okay.
So
Great.
anything else you want
Okay.
to show on the whole group? I think now is the time.
Nope, that's it. And in the breakout, I can talk more about any of the CMSs if you like, or any of the particular pieces of software that we use for this. And I'll just briefly highlight what they are in chat. But that's it. Thank you, guys.
In the chat, we are also very excited that you talk about the labor cost of these things, and especially considering that there is a lot less labor power in museums right now with lots of layoffs, for example. So yeah,
Oh, yeah,
just because something
definitely.
free monetarily doesn't mean it's free for sure.
And it's a huge strain on everyone involved because this is not like a drop-in solution made for museums. So different departments have to do different parts of it, have to think about different parts of it. It was a lot of lassoing.
Okay. Rachel, did you get your business all set up?
I hope so. We'll see.
Okay, let's try it.
I have a new computer and hadn't set up all my permissions for Zoom to have access to my screen, so it should work now. Are we good?
Yep. We
Okay,
are
great.
in.
All right. So I'm going to talk about Netx, which is I started at the Portland Art Museum as the digital assets manager. I now do digital assets and collections information systems. But one of the big initiatives when I started there 3 years ago, within the first 18 months or so, was we made a decision to do a migration. And we actually just launched the new system in February. I was doing onboardings in February and early March. I did my final onboarding remotely because of all the shutdowns. So the timing couldn't have been better in some awkward, morbid way. But so this is the really brief. I had 2 minutes during an all staff to get folks hyped right before the launch. And so this was a presentation I did. Of course, these are assets of cats, of images of works with cats in them. And so I'm going to start this by talking about sort of the user experience, and then I'll go into sort of the admin side. So you'll see both sides. I'll try and go through it quickly because onboarding usually takes about an hour to 90 minutes with folks. So 10 minutes is really brief. Okay, so 5 fun facts about PAM's new digital assets management system. These are things that we didn't have previously that staff could get excited about. Easy wins. So the very first thing is that we have access off campus now. We didn't previously, and so this has been a huge deal during the lockdowns or the stay-at-home orders. And we were able to connect it with single sign-on with other systems. So no new, no separate passwords to manage, which is great. you just have to forego these other fields and use the sign in with your PAM account. We have, for the first time, automatic syncing with our collections management system. Previously, this was a manual process with report exports and imports. And so now we have this set up so that information from MIMSI, a much more robust set of information from our system, can come into the DAMS. I can do a manual push of that information, as well as there's a regular sync that happens nightly if needed, or to keep things up to date. Deep zoom at full resolution. Previously, our DAMS had a proxy that it was displaying that was much lower res. Our collections photographer, Ben Court, he was doing amazing photography at this time, and we really couldn't make that available to our curators and our staff to take full advantage of without them having to download the images and use a different system, which is really hard on your systems when you have less power in your computers. And then there's on-demand cropping before you export. That is user-based. So in our older photography workflow, not everything had color bars cut out that was available on the user side. And so we get lots of requests from marketing and education to crop things for them. And now we can say, you can crop it on your own as you come through. And also there's more robust sharing. Previous DAMs had things were either public or private. So everyone who had an account or could see it, or only you could see it if you're creating collections. So these were the big things that we were excited about. And you can share both internally sets as well as sharing externally. So just a lot more more granular functionality, as well as more empowering our users to do more with this stuff without having to necessarily come to the digital assets manager or somebody else to ask for the things that they need. So that's the slideshow. And those are all kind of digestible chunks for our users. And then this is what actually going into the digital asset management from a typical user perspective looks like. You come in and there's a dashboard. Users can customize the dashboard to their liking. But some of the primary things that we do in digital asset and DAMs at museums or all over is search, collect, and share views. Those are our primary things. So I was going to demonstrate, I'll start by demonstrating the search. So at the top, we have this keyword search, which is just the default search. It'll search all metadata fields. This system calls metadata attributes and then differentiates between the attributes on the surface level as well from the embedded attributes of the embedded metadata of the assets themselves. So this will search the attributes, which are ones that I've said these should be searched. So for example, we had an exhibition several years ago that focused on animals. It was called Kingdom Animalia. So if I did a search for Animalia here, it's going to give me, get rid of this little guy. It's going to give me all of the assets related to with that keyword anywhere in it. And we can look at the assets in different layouts. This one gives you no metadata, so I almost never use it, but our users might like it. It's very pretty. This one gives you very minimal metadata. I tend to sit with these card catalog sort of views. They call it the Curator View or the List View because I'm almost always looking more at the metadata than the images themselves, but users are not. So we see we have 452 assets here, and you'll see one with color bars here too. And From here, there's faceted search. So the admin has control over what attributes are also set up to be facets. And in this case, I have set the parent level folders as a facet. And so I can narrow it down and say, actually, I only want the images of the objects in that exhibition to display. I'm not interested in anything else. And we get that here. Or conversely, and you'll see as you build faceted search, you'll start to get all of these pills across the way, and you can get rid of them just by clicking the X. Conversely, maybe we only want pictures of the installation, and so we can get that here. Let's see. So let's go back to exhibitions. And we'll see all of the facets have gone away because those facets are based on object information. And once we're in the exhibitions, we aren't embedding the object information. So only relevant if none of the assets in the set have information in that field goes away. So from here, I could add all to a selection. And we get this bar across the bottom, which tells us everything that we have. And I have some options here. I can download, collect, or share. And then there's a few more. I can create a contact sheet with a PDF, or I can export just the attributes as a CSV. Most of our users aren't going to do that. I do that as an admin sometimes. But we can collect here, and this is to create a set of images that you're going to come back to. So I'm going to call this the Kingdom, with the right keyboard, the Kingdom and Amelia collection. Not there, that's the search, sorry. And then I can hit save. If I wanted to add it to an existing collection, I would just check these boxes as well. So you can do a couple of things. But I'm going to hit save. This creates a collection which can be found over here. And then I can come back to it again and again. Let's see. I can deselect my assets. Then once I come back, we'll see there's 43 assets here. And then once I have them collected, I can choose to do all of those things that we saw before when they were selected. Even though they're not selected now, I can just do it from the collection itself. So here we can share externally. I can share with team is to share internally. And so any user that I have, this is kind of like in Google Docs, where you can kind of granularly add users and give them different permissions. Or you can create a link, and this creates a external sort of mini site that you can give to maybe a press contact and say, here are images that you could publish with that article that you're going to write up about us. Okay, so that's the user experience. From the admin side, things look a little different. You'll see that in our user setup, most folks only have 3 folders right now: art collection, exhibitions, and programs and events. I have a processing room, which really very few people have access to. And it's kind of the first landing place where the assets that come into the system belong. So our collections photography goes into the processing room. It goes into a folder by day of photography. And then once it's in here, I can do some QC. And then I've set up some auto tasks so that once I've done a QC of everything, quality control check, make sure the metadata came through as it should, I can change the system attribute. I can change the attribute set that I'm looking at to the system administration. This is a set of attributes I've created just for myself. I can choose to edit this, and I can change the workflow to publish assets to user folders, user access folders. And if I hit apply, then this would then add this asset to one of the folders that users have access to based on its legal status. It doesn't remove it from this folder. It just now means this asset lives in both places at once, which is also how I manage retiring assets. They stay in the shoot date folder, but then they move from the public access folder to a folder called non-current that is also in the processing room, but it gives, but our conservator has access to this folder and a few other key folks who need the older images and not just the most recent photograph. I'll give you a little behind the scenes. So here's another area where we didn't see from the user side. This is like the admin section. So here, this is where you would add users and set up their permissions. Permissions are set up in Netx based on groups and permissions separately. I'm gonna proceed. So basically for us, the way we do permissions is all new users get added to the PAM and Northwest Film Center extended staff field. This is like the big bucket which has access to permanent collection images only. And then depending on the department, they will get added to additional additional groups, and those groups have special permissions which are managed here. So it was a little more complicated from how we're managing permissions before, but we also have a lot more control, which is nice. And this is where these are the attribute sets. Users can create their own custom attribute sets, which display, sorry, my cat is trying to get involved. But administrators can also create system attribute sets that all users can see. And so those are just pretty straightforward. Once you've created your attributes, you can just add them and order them and name them and then make them available. Let's see. So one of the questions that Claire asked us to answer is, what is a cool or special thing about our software? So one of the things that I've been having a lot of fun with playing around with is Netx has been piloting a IIIF integration. And we have been playing around with it at Museum. I've turned it on, and which gives our internal staff access to some IIIF capability. But, and I'm kind of using it to try and get internal buy-in so that I can advocate for actual IIIF in our online collections. So our web developer created this portlandartmuseum.org/viewer site for us, which is basically just an empty Mirador instance. And so now if a curator is working with an object, I use this one as an example. Let me go back to Kingdom Animalia. So this is a work that was in the Kingdom Animalia exhibition. I didn't demonstrate this before, but there's this beautiful deep zoom in the system. And the curator, for example, could use this, which is a little slow because I'm working remotely, to look at the deep zoom here, which is wonderful. But say they want to compare it to another work by the same artist that's at a different institution. So what they could do is they could send a request to me to create a IIIF compatible view manifest. And And I would come into the system. I would say generate IIIF view, apply. And let's see. Sorry, some of the landscape is coming over it. And then I could come into the overview. I'm gonna do a refresh just to make sure that it's here. I have the manifest here. I have the view here. So now I could come into here. Now that if I'm the curator, I can come into here and I can copy the manifest link, come into Mirador. Sorry, I'm moving around the Zoom resources a little bit. Add resource, link my manifest, and it shows up here. And now you have all the Mirador abilities in here. One limitation is that it's every attribute that's in the DAMS right now. So this is not really viable for external use yet, but it could be once refined. And then trying to get to here. So here's an example of the Yale Center for British Art also has some Thomas Daniel works depicting elephants, and say maybe I want to see what this one looks like. And I want to put it in the same viewer. I can grab their manifest, which is in the URL here. And then add the resource. And now I can look at these. Sorry, just one second. Okay, so now you can see them side by side. I can go deeper into all these things. There's other very cool things in the system. We're probably running out of time in the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, so now we are going to, we've heard from 4 people showing off their software. We're going to have breakout rooms, 1 for each, and you guys are going to be able to go to the breakout room for which you would like to hear more, see a more in-depth, ask questions, that kind of stuff. So the only thing is that you need to have the latest version of Zoom to do this. In a minute, when we set the breakout rooms, then you'll have to like click on it to go to the one that you want to. But if you don't, then you have 2 options. You can either leave, upgrade your Zoom and come back, or just hang out in the main chat and our admin will put you in the one that you want to be in. Does that make sense to everybody? Alrighty, welcome back everybody. I see that per usually we have lost a lot of people having gone to breakout rooms, but that is the nature of the beast for sure. Thank you everyone for participating in breakout room situation. I hope you got some good chances to see more in depth and ask questions that you wanted to of everybody. And now we'd like to open the floor if anybody else has a software that they should like to show off for a lightning round. If you have a software that you are cool to show, then raise your hand, put it in the chat. This is an experimental session, so we are going to experiment. True, this is a session where everybody can share their screen. We didn't tell you this in case somebody wanted to share something that we didn't want, but now we're saying yes. Please do share.
I have a tool that I use often that I'm a huge evangelist of, and it's completely free. I think it's only for Windows, but it's called Bulk Rename Utility, and it is just so wonderful for especially trying to repair nomenclature and standardize things. It's just a very easy tool. It actually integrates with Windows, so you can right click and on files and folders and open it up directly. It's a non-intrusive download and install, and I would definitely say give it a try the next time you have to deal with a lot of, I say, either images. It even works in subfolders as well. So definitely check that out. You'll Google it and it'll be the first thing that comes up, bulk rename utility.
That does sound fun. Mostly using Lightroom to rename stuff. Couldn't live my life without Lightroom personally. Anyone else have software that they enjoy?
I'm game. I wasn't planning on it, but
All right.
Brenda, what the heck? Okay. I am a fan of Kaggle. And it is also a free tool, although you can pay for it and create more projects. But this is a mind mapping diagramming tool. And I find it really useful to create maps for things that I need to think through in terms of their processes. So for instance, I did a recent diagram of a mummy portrait conservation project to kind of look through all of the different terms that they're collecting in this project and try and figure out relationships between the terms. And it's super, I mean, it does this one thing. It's dead simple, but it does it very intuitively, and it's kind of a neat way of looking at data differently. This one was for a data project.
It's not showing us anything on the screen. It's just saying blank black screen. So maybe a different window.
So sorry. Let me, how about this one? Is that, do you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That is showing us the thing.
Okay, sorry. It's at kaggle.it, and this is the diagram for the mummy portrait data. And so the thing is that this project was developed kind of haphazardly, or it has grown organically over time, like some projects do. And so the idea was to map out what kinds of terms they were using and identify places where there are similarities or the same kinds of things tracked in different ways. This is just a data project, but I've also used it for, let's see, diagramming our museum. So this is an alternative to an org chart, but it's a functional mind map. And it talks about what all of the departments used by function. And I just find this a really interesting way of looking at information. So kaggle.it is my recommendation.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
And I don't know how to stop. I have to stop my share. There we go.
Very good. Anyone else? Something you've been working on, something you like?
Can I put a request out there? I keep hearing about Airtable and I feel so out of the loop. Does anyone want to demonstrate? It sounds like everyone's using it except for me, maybe. So I'd love to see a demonstration.
We used it for reviewing proposals for MCN.
Yeah, hi. It was just expecting. I can actually take you through it for a different setup that I shared during the Airtable deep dive. But as Claire mentioned, we use it for setting up this entire conference for reviewing proposals and managing volunteers, keeping track of production. We don't just some a intro to Airtable while I get things set up on my end. Airtable is like the best spreadsheet and more. It is a user-friendly relational database. It is a sheet system with like custom coding built into it, so you don't need to code or be savvy with as much to be able to build custom integrations. So I'm actually just going to share my screen real quick. Let's see. Oh, no, that's not what I need. I lost my own tabs. Okay, so one of the ways that we use Airtable here at the Field Museum is actually for taking events and events promotion. So in Airtable, every record is like a unique entity, but can be referenced and faceted in a way that is unique to that view. So we've set up this event brief form, much like a Google form, and folks can tell us like, what is your event? Who's your main point of contact? What are your goals? What are your audiences and whatnot? And then from there, we use Zapier, which is like an if this, then that setup to generate a Google Doc from their information that they shared here, which we use as an event brief. So it is like our one source of truth for that document. And then at the same time, that information is fed into our tracker grid so that we're able to check this and just sort of check it with our team of like, hey, which events are complete, which ones are in process. And the most powerful thing that I like about Airtable are the various views that you can have, so that while anything that we edit in this view is independent of anything in our in progress versus our tracker, and it does a really good job of like tracking changes to an event. It's like they've been rolling out edits, so now you can actually like attach images or particular links to a record change or a comment, but it's just been super powerful for us to sort of build up like a project management tool, communications pipelines like this. As Roger shared very briefly, we even entertained it as a CMS for a little bit. So it's like super flexible. I think the most difficult thing about Airtable is actually just getting started on it, because you can do so much at a single time that often you don't really know where to start.
What is a Kanban? Kanban?
Okay. Oh yeah, so it is, let's see if we do it by year. It'll show you like a stack of cards, and you can decide here like how it stacks it. So it needs to be a single select field. So here it is by year, but it'll serve you all the different things. I'm like, oh, let me show me all the online events versus the in-person, and you can sort of cut it up the way that you want. So in this one, as an example, I will do by year, and I will say, show me only the online things once I found it. And the one drawback though of Airtable is, one of them actually, is the pricing model. This has been really great for fostering collaboration across our teams. Like this is sort of brought on PR and our marketing teams, but it's actually owned by us, because you can't really share licenses in a way like you can do Zoom. You have to pay per editor. You can share read-only views, which is super helpful if you want to make your workflow more transparent, or export things for particular users. As Claire mentioned, we had read-only views for our reviewers this year in MCN, and they actually rolled out a new feature earlier this year that allows you to lock specific fields by lock specific fields by user, which even makes it more powerful if you are trying to like get everybody to help in with a particular sheet of data, but don't want everyone to have the keys.
We had a question in the chat. Can sortable forms be embedded on web pages for public use?
Yes. I believe with the pricing plan, that'll just tell you if you can like strip the Airtable branding from it or not. We don't really use it too much for embedding. Most of the forms we have are all internal.
We have a request for anyone that's using Piction DAMs. Do we know who is using Piction that maybe Louise can head up in the Slack?
And my advice would be to not use Piction.
I have seen in
And
general.
that's either
people-
the old or the new, because especially since the old is not compatible with the current Oracle structure. And Oracle's kind of something you need to update once in a while.
Jessica, who presented from the DIA, I know that they were running Picture, and they're currently they're migrating over to Widen from Picture.
Yeah, and we had.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Old,
There you are.
yeah. No, we're using Christopher. We were talking about it in the breakout. Yeah, we are using old Piction. Just as a update, and that was just for images of the collection. We didn't have any video or audio or any other images in there.
Any other requests for opinions about particular softwares?
Does anybody use Resource Space?
I'll bet there's someone in the DAMS SIG who does, if you have questions.
I was just going to say, for those who are not members of the DAMS SIG, it's a highly useful group. I know that's DAMS and not other systems that we've discussed, but there is a lot of overlap too. So if somebody doesn't know the answer to your question in the SIG, they'll know who to send you to.
That's a good point, Louise. You might want to reach out to Richard Urban Corning. I'll ping you his contact. He's part of the DAM SIG, but I know they use Piction, new Piction. He's not at MCN this week, I don't think, but he's a really, really good person to chat with in general, but especially about Piction.
Yeah, no, he's not here this week.
All right, so we have until 2:15 if we want to take it, but I mean, we've been here for a while, so I want to say thank you all for joining us and for experimenting with us and for showing off your software. Thanks to all of our presenters. We kind of strong-armed you into this, and we're glad that you were here to do it for us. And we will try to figure out how to do something like this next year, hopefully in person. But I think that, I think it went pretty well. I think that the format was specifically good for this. If you have any feedback, put it in the chat and we'll hang out for a few minutes extra. But other than that, go team.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Claire and Chris.
Yeah, any feedback, let me know how it is. It is lunchtime. Hell yeah. Especially, yeah, this entire thing was right over lunch, like 12 to 2.
Yeah. I made sure I had breakfast super late.
Yeah, I had breakfast at 11, but I didn't do it on purpose.
Oh yeah. I was like, no, I'm gonna wait so that way I can eat lunch after. But so are you? We don't have to. I mean, Claire, you were laid off in October.
I was
Just
laid
as
off.
a reminder. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We're being recorded.
Recorded.
And it's transcript. So.
Yep.
Oh right.
Yeah. We had large set of layoffs over the summer, and then my boss and I were laid off October 16th because they were eliminating the publication department. So,
are you looking for a museum specifically or anything?
I mean, DAMS work, nonprofit would be good.
Mm-hmm.
I would go in-house somewhere if there's a good vendor too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Yeah, no, DAMS was, I did lots of copyright licensing, I did DAMS, and I did book publications. So of those three things, the DAMS is the one I want to focus on.
Right, okay, cool. Well, thank you. I'll talk to you, everyone, later.
Yeah, if you see anything, let me know. I'm on Twitter.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jessica.
Bye, everybody.
Claire, I had a thought once we were walking through it, because I think this session and our tool petting zoo deep dive were very close cousins. And I
Yeah.
think that it came with the same sort of like, oh yeah, like I don't really have questions. I just want to see the tools in action. Steve, I thought you had a really good thought of like spinning up a sandbox. I was like, oh, I probably like upon further reflection, if I were to do that again, letting people. And I think that like while it's easy to share screens when we're all on, that session would have been like, here, like you can use my machine, I will type it, and you can sort of like build up your own base. Or maybe we have a sort of situation of like, let's all try to work this situation out together if someone has trouble with a particular issue in their software. But I think that model proved popular, and I think it might continue to be, considering like how much MCN is growing and how many new tools just like constantly.
Yeah, I think that that's something, and I know I've seen way less vendor participation in this one than in previous years.
Yeah.
And I do think that that was a big thing for me to go to MCN and when I was looking for my DAMs to see, just poke at it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. If there's nothing else, I might cut the session. Bye, Mel. I can see you waving. Thank you
you
both. Yeah, if there's anything else you need, let me know, but we have the recording. Did you want the chat?
I don't care.
You don't care?
I do not care about the
Okay.
chat, personally.
Let me just scroll through. I think that, yeah, I think anything that was asked in there got addressed.
Cool.
Subsequently.
Okay.
Andrea, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Yeah, thank you for to the conference.
Steve, thank
Good
you.
admin,
That was
everybody.
really cool.